Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life.
Today, I want to welcome Jennifer Heinen. Jennifer is a fashion psychologist, which fascinates me because it talks about self-empowerment, self-care, and well-being, which, as you all know, is my topic. So, Jennifer, welcome. Please tell us a bit about yourself. We'd love to know, because fashion psychologist is somewhat different.
First of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. About me, I've been in the fashion industry for over a decade. I've been working on product initially. So I worked as a stylist and designer, and clothing was literally my language for a very long time. And then I realized why it was my language, because clothing is a tool that we can use to not only for our appearances, but it's a psychological scaffolding. So what we wear can be our armor, our identity, our language, our healing. So pretty much everything that we wear is what we're projecting outward. And I realized that throughout my years in the industry, that the more we actually think about why we wear what we wear, the more we are then intentionally aligning what we are wearing, the better our life and the more aligned and harmonious and less friction we can get. During the pandemic, I did my shift and actually pursued further education, did my master's degree here in London, and am now an accredited psychologist with the British Psychological Society, and have been working in the psychological aspect of things now ever since. So pretty exciting.
So what led you into fashion in the first place?
Oh, that's a good question. I always was kind of the odd one out. I always dressed slightly differently. I never really understood group dynamics and but in the way that kids, people, teenagers do. But I did understand group dynamics through clothing. So, how to fit in with your peers, how to stand out with your peers. And I kind of love the creative aspect of things, of creating. I used to sew anyway. My mom taught me how to sew. And I ended up doing my apprenticeship in custom tailoring, which then was kind of for me just the starting point, because I didn't want to do more school initially. And it kind of helped me to set me up on my path to do my bachelor's degree in design and everything. And I noticed that every step that I did, I kind of took it as in the moment, and was like, okay, but I want more. I want more. I learned how to make the garment from scratch, and I'm like, but how do I design it? I want more. And then I did the design, and then how do you style it? And then I wanted to do more of that. And now I'm in the biggest more possible. And I do why do we do what we do? And it's the best thing ever. So, yeah.
So there's obviously a massive passion there. I can feel it and hear it, obviously. A desire to learn and grow from what you've learned yourself. How would you say that clothes actually affect us, and why, perhaps, is a good question?
That is the actual psychology of fashion that me and my colleagues are studying. So I am sitting personally in the intersection of identity, emotion, memory, and what we wear. And for me, and for what the research says, fashion isn't just about trends or aesthetic. It's about power, about memory, safety, truth, and especially after trauma. And in fashion psychology pretty much started off with enclosed cognition. It's a concept in psychology where Adam and Galinsky in 2012, so it's not a new thing, showed that what we wear changes literally cognitively how others perceive us, but also how we are perceiving ourselves. And that sounds quite blasé, but it's not, because in their study, they actually did an experiment where their participants were wearing lab coats, like the traditional white lab coats. And I know they're not like, I know that I think they're not legal in the UK here anymore to be worn by a doctor. But in the US, they did the study and they were like, here, this lab coat is a doctor's coat. So they gave this coat, so to speak, a meaning that was widely like accepted. And then told them to do like a few certain tasks. And during those tasks, they observed the group and noticed that they performed better on attention tests, worked way more structured and analytical. And then the second group, they gave the code and told them it's a painter's coat, because a white lab coat looks like kind of both.
Okay.
So they changed the meaning and gave the second group the exact thing. And they didn't perform the way the people with the doctor's coat were performing. And they were more thinking outside the box, and like they adapted the persona of an artist more. And that happened by that was rewiring their brain. And that's just underlines the aspect of why it's so important that we are intentionally aware what we are wearing. And this was just like a socially aspect of meaning attached to a garment. But that gets even stronger when you have a personal meaning attached to things. And that's where I am coming in, because I am looking into time stamping, memory. I work a lot with grief, how loss can and heirlooms can affect how we are like interacting with things, how we are staying tethered and can be processing loss through our clothing better. And yeah, fashion psychology does all of that. That's pretty much the science behind the dressing that started it all. And so when I, as an example, but it doesn't even have to be that deep. So when I, as an example, wear like a blazer that used to make me feel like sharp and capable, even after burnout, I might feel a little spark of that identity again. And because that meaning is attached to that, or this identity is attached to that, or I just feel super strong because of the shoulder pads. It doesn't even have to, can even be even flatter. It actually does affect how I am not only being seen by people, but also how I am appearing. And yeah, it kind of affects me psychologically.
Okay, so something that's come into my mind is nowadays we do either hybrid working, or we just work at home, or we work in the office. Obviously, if we're working at home, we don't dress up as we would do for the office necessarily. How does that impact us psychologically then for getting the work done?
Oh, I'm actually of the opinion you should dress up at home, because we noticed that a lot during the pandemic, that, even if you wear high heels or like trainers, it immediately affects like your readiness and your like attention span is increasing. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky thing, right? Because when you're at home, you also have the opportunity to just like do a lot of homework and stuff and housework. I work from home. I don't have an office. So yeah, it does impact us psychologically actually quite drastically. But the thing is that when we're looking at emotion regulatory processes, the intentional dressing when we're going into the office is more important, because when you're at home, you're already in a psychological safe space. So you're like the setting is already safe. So you can then cope with certain situations better. While when you're going out, you kind of have to like create that scaffolding literally on your second layer, like on your second skin. So that's why the dressing is such a big impact to support your emotional well-being there.
Fascinating. So how about colour? Because as we well know, prior to the pandemic, everything, if you went into the office, generally you'd be wearing black or dark colours. It'd be an occasional very bright colour, and I'd be an example, but hey. So how do people perceive colour then in the sense of power? Because obviously black is supposed to be a powerful colour, but I always felt it brought me down.
Yeah, that's like the big thing, right? So color psychology is a big part of fashion psychology. So we're looking at that, especially in our clothing. And then if you then as a stylist look at it even deeper, like that not every color suits everyone, right? So that also plays a part in it. Um, so it's multi-layered, and that's what makes fashion psychology so fascinating. It plays a big part, and there is not a really good one-off answer I can give you. It's yes, we have certain colors that we perceive with other things, with certain things, with certain status, but it also depends on the field. So it's very individual. Like as an example, in fashion design, you might think that people are very like colorful and creative, and some are. Like we have a lot. A lot of my colleagues were having like the funniest, craziest hair colors, and were like always like out there and dressed super maximalist. But there are also a lot of, especially in the minimalistic identity coined brands, they wear a lot of black turtlenecks and black glasses and black suits. So it always depends on kind of the setting. And so there is always like kind of this underlying uniform, especially when it comes to work and certain industries standards. Um, but when it comes to our personal aspect of how we are handling color, that's different. So of course we all have like our preferences, but as an example, you are wearing today such a beautiful like orangey red, fiery red shirt. That is actually increasing your dopamine, and it's actually supporting you in feeling upbeat and just like fiery. It gives you like energy, while I am wearing like a soft olive green, which has the tendencies to stimulate the brain in a way that it's calming and soothing and relaxing. So when you're nervous or when you're like being a bit sick or so, that can support you to just like calm and relax. But that doesn't apply to everyone, and that's always why I have to like always make the disclaimer. It's super it depends on what soothes you, right? Some people feel like are overstimulated by bright colors, so they don't necessarily want to wear them or look at them a lot, so they're wearing more muted colors. And then trend is an aspect as well. So people are just not surrounded by a certain color all the time, or they are surrounded by a color a certain time. So they start to kind of like rewire their brain and be like, oh yeah, this is kind of the trend color. I didn't like that color at first, but I'm starting to like that color. It's like butter yellow has been such a big trend color this summer and spring, and I've seen it everywhere. It's like this really buttery, like light pastel yellow, and it's a really nice color. It's not my color. I like more the darker and more amber and after storm yellows. Um, but the more I see it, the more I'm like, hey, that's actually kind of a nice color. And I'm not saying it's not a nice color, but it's like not a color for me. I'm a high contrast. I have dark hair. I have very pale skin. I wear big bold glasses. So when I wear butter yellow, it washes me out. So I cannot like literally not wear it because I have to put a lot of makeup on to make up for it. I could make it work, but I don't want to. So these kind of colors, they affect us differently. But it also means because there's such a wide range of use, we are able to everyone can find their own right red, right blue, right green, right yellow, and that's the wonderful part about it, and it will affect us similarly.
So the fact that we're surrounded by this yellow at the moment, I don't go out an awful lot at the moment because of focusing on what I'm doing. But how does that impact us personally then? If we've got our own colours and we're wearing the colours that we like and suit us, if we go into an environment where there's a lot of that colour, the yellow, how does that impact us?
That's a good question. Well, first of all, for people who have not noticed that trend yet, they get more and more aware of the trend, of course, because the more you see it, the more cognitively you are just aware. But yeah, I mean, but it depends. Like, right, if you see like people all the time with like a foxy pink, like that was super. I'm sorry. I have a cat. I'm so sorry. I have a cat. Your editor is going to hate this because like my cat is running around and meowing. So I apologize in advance. I hope you don't hear it as much.
I have one as well. She usually walks in and jumps up, so don't worry.
he just got his zoomies and he's screaming. So oh my
we
God.
can't hear it. Don't worry,
Okay.
we can't hear
Okay.
it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So where were I?
The yellows, the lovely
Yes.
yellows.
Yes. So I'm gonna start from the beginning because it's better
Please do.
for cutting.
No, don't worry about it. I must admit, I make mistakes, and seriously, that's part of life. We all screw up somewhere, so don't worry. My editor's got used to it, so don't worry.
Okay, good to know. I still, to the editor, I want to apologize. So I'm fully blanking now.
Right, we were talking about yellow, and if we see it surrounding us, how does it impact us?
Oh yeah. So yeah, the more we are seeing a certain color, the more we are adapting to it because it becomes norm, and we're almost, I don't want to say conditioning ourselves, but it's kind of that way, right? So like from a psychological wiring, we're starting to get used to it, and everything that habituates lowers the threshold also to purchase things in that color because the barrier is lowered the more you see it. So that's kind of the tricky part about trends. The more you see it, the more you are like not even thinking about, is this what I want or is it what society is wearing and wanting? So, and do I want to belong and do I want to fit into that trend, or do I actively, intentionally reject it? So for people who are not necessarily in the fashion industry and are not consistently looking at trends, or even on social media don't see the trends popping up, they might be unconsciously on their next shopping spree reaching for a butter yellow, even though that is not a color they would usually go for. And because they weren't intentionally doing it, these types of garments often land in the wardrobe and are not worn again because they are not an impulse buy, because they're not, but they're like manipulated through the trends and the surrounding of you. They kind of tricked your brain that you want that color.
Interesting. That's how marketing works then, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of fashion psychologists in marketing. There's a lot of psychology in there.
Okay, so what am I sensing? If we tend to stick to certain colors, what does that do to us personally then? Because I tend to go for bright colors. Generally, I just love being in that energy of brightness. They can be dark bright, but they'll be bright. How does it impact us then if we constantly choose that kind of style or color? How does that impact us as a person? And even say I live in a flat that's got white walls, but I've got natural wood everywhere, but my color comes from me and what I'm wearing. Oh, and I've got green settee, but it's not that big. So how does that impact us as a person then?
I love that question so much because you are already living what a lot of people are trying to live, because you are even unconsciously, you are creating your safe psychological scaffolding at home. And you are dressing and creating a home that is supporting your wiring and your nervous system. So that's where like support and mental health, of course, comes in as well, because fashion psychology plays a really big part of that. And to one thing, the first thing is you wearing a lot of bright colors. That is, you are pretty much doing dopamine dressing. Dopamine dressing is if you wear a lot of bright colors, that your brain is actually sending out more and more dopamine. So you are just very happy. That's like the thing. And I can tell like you're beaming and you're smiling, and it's a genuine smile. So it's like you can create happiness through these kind of regular things. And a lot of people who, let's say, go through really hard times like burnout, depression, I've noticed that in myself too. The moment you are feeling like you're checking out of certain situations, you are starting to dress less like yourself, like you are kind of losing yourself in the way you dress. And it often is like the first sign that you have to change something, and it's very subtle. Like you, as an example, you think maybe in the beginning, oh, I'm just lazy, I don't want to do my hair in the morning. But if that happens every day, every day, every day, every day, every day, and you're starting to, not reach for your favorite blouse anymore, or you start to reach for your safety and comfort pieces a lot, that can be a pattern that you need to recognize. And you're like, oh, there is something that is threatening my psychological safety. How can we disrupt this now? And literally starting to wear certain things that used to make you happy can actually like bring this memory and this somatic memory back into your forefront to then start actually living that again.
Fascinating, because you saying that, I can remember wearing really dull colored clothes when I was going through my nervous breakdown. And that's so not like me. It would be, as you say, it's comfort clothes.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with wearing comfort clothes. I mean, just to bring that out there to the audience, absolutely. It's nothing wrong with that. It's just like you need to observe yourself and always be just a bit more aware, especially when it comes to the dressing part. If you are a person who dresses very intentionally anyway, you will notice these patterns already. And I hope I can give that a little bit of language now. But also what you were saying with having like a nervous breakdown or something, clothing, that's what my primary research looks at, the emotion regulatory processes of clothing. So what my research tells is that clothing becomes like an emotion regulatory tool. And a lot of people underestimate how important our emotional resilience is in our broad aspect of us being mentally healthy. Because the more, like we always say, like, right, when you are like, the more flexible you are physically, the healthier you are, right? It's not necessarily how strong you are or how far you can run, but if you are doing yoga every day in the morning and you can like stretch really well, that's very good for your joints and for, at least that's what my sporty people active people say. So the more physically flexible you are, the healthier is your body. But that applies to your mind too. The more flexible your brain is, your emotions are, the more you can flex your mind, the healthier is your mind and your brain. And like we all know, like, okay, I'm starting to get stressed. Okay, I need to do deep breathing exercises. But a lot of people underestimate how what we can wear can anchor us back into ourselves, or it can agitate us and actually make it worse. So when we're looking at certain things, that's why wardrobe audits are so important, that we reevaluate what we have and decide what we own can already support us and be more consciously aware of that. Like as an example, I have one blouse in my wardrobe. It's like, I talk about this all the time, but anyway, it's a blouse from my grandmother. My grandmother passed away in 2019. She was one of the biggest supporters in her own way. And she was one of more quiet people, but when she said something, it kind of like, it hit. Like everything that she said was so deliberate and intentional. And I miss her a lot. Like grief is a really big part of life. And this love that I still have left over for her that will never go away is fed into this garment, because it's like a physical tether to her. Yeah. And whenever I feel like I need to brace myself for something, or I don't feel well, or I miss her, or I feel like how many times do we have this thought, especially in grief, when like, oh, what would you say right now, right? Yeah. I kind of slip into the blouse and I'd wear it, and I'm like, wow, I kind of can embody her. And even though I'm not her, right, it's still me. The enclosed memory in it can support me in whatever I need. But that takes time. So it's also, that's why I said the wardrobe audits are important, but you need to do them many times, because when she passed straight after, I knew I wanted that blouse. I knew it immediately. So I got the blouse, but I couldn't touch it. I had to put it all the way in the back because the grief was so raw that the loss was overwhelming. But over time, the more you process it and the more you go through life and the more you are interacting with your other pieces of clothing, you start to process your own grief. And then now it's not that she's gone. It's more like she has folded into the part of my memory, she has folded into the part of my life that memory keeps warm. So, and now because it's there, whenever I pull that blouse out, I don't feel the loss. I feel the love left over to give. So when I wear it now, I can use, this is one of my strongest regulatory tools, because there's so much emotion and so much memory attached to it. The less memory and the emotions attached to garments, the lesser impact it has on our mind and our brain. So that's also why I always say shop your closet first, also not only from a sustainability aspect of don't shop Primark and go out and feed into fast fashion all the time. No, shop your wardrobe first, because you have pieces there that might have changed meaning. So they can actually feed your soul and your mind way more now than it maybe has been in the past. So, yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Not necessarily through my mother, who passed 2 years ago now, but to the relationship I have with clothes that at the present I cannot get into because I've been too static. But I'm starting to move a lot more now, so I can see that potentially I will be able to get back into them. And those clothes hold such a powerful memory of when I felt really comfortable with myself. So just thinking about them, I can feel my body going, oh, yes, please.
Yeah, I think the important part also is when we're thinking about trauma or pain or anything, right? Trauma lives in our bodies. I mean,
oh yeah.
And clothes do touch the body. So trauma, what it does, it disconnects us from our body. And we are kind of trying to find back to it, when we're going into functioning freeze and all of these aspects of mental health. The first thing that we detach from is clothing, because it's the easiest to shed. But clothing is also the first thing that can reintroduce us back to sensation and to weight and temperature and visibility. And that is kind of where fashion becomes somatic and what is very underestimated. As an example, too tight can be very overstimulating, or it can be re-triggering. So I can relate to what you're saying. During the pandemic, before the pandemic, I think I was between 2017 and 2019, I was at my peak comfort of me loving my body the most. Right. I always had a very strained relationship with my body. I always struggled with it. I was especially in my teenage years, I was always on the skinnier end. And then during puberty, I kind of fluctuated. I was never I was never really big, but I struggled just to accept my body as myself rather than through the social expectation lens. Which fractured my my relationship with it. So between 17 and 19, I had the best relationship with my body, and I wasn't the skinniest. I wasn't. I was in the perfect range where I could be active again. My clothes fit exactly how I wanted them to fit. And then the pandemic hit, and emotions and mental health tanked. So I gained a lot of weight, and I'm still in my upper range. That doesn't mean that I love myself less right now. It doesn't, because that is different work. But it is also okay to acknowledge that I don't feel aligned with my body as much, because it currently still carries too much trauma, and I need to work that out. And what can I do? I can either alter the clothes that I used to wear. I mean, I'm a tailor, so I can do it myself. So I don't have to bring it to a tailor. So it's not additional costs for me. But I can try to go back into the clothes, but they also, now that I'm older, they don't necessarily fit as they have in 2017 anymore. So it's like a continuous, like, finding your sweet spot of where you love yourself, where you care for yourself, and dressing is self-care.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
wow, that has been amazing. I have gained so much knowledge just listening to you explain fashion psychology. Seriously, I am blown away by how much is actually connecting us through color, through what we wear, to our minds and how we feel about ourselves. It's phenomenal. So, yeah, what would be something that you would recommend? Basically, women watch this and listen to this, so obviously for women, but I presume for men as well, there's something that they need to be aware of that will help them emotionally in their choice of clothes.
Yeah, I think the first recommendation I can give is just check in, and don't check in with like, oh yeah, what do I need to wear today? I would more like check in from like an emotional awareness standpoint. So how do I feel, and how do I need to feel, and what clothing can support that feeling, that need? How can we pretty much tailor our wardrobe to not necessarily only aesthetically fit what we need to do, but also emotionally and psychologically. And that's what I do. Like I do one-on-one coaching, and in my coaching, I have developed the Style Mind Shift method, the framework, where we are actually doing wardrobe audit a slightly different way. It's very adaptive, I'm noticing, for neurodiverse people. I'm one of the neurodiverse folks too. And it's because our brain is slightly differently wired, it helps to look at your wardrobe and your audit a bit different. And so we are creating like different zones, like it's a zone-based approach in your wardrobe. So you have like a comfort zone, you have a certain identity zone that you need to fit into. Like I have a fashion psychology zone, I have a comfort zone, I have a confidence zone, and these different zones, I just know, okay, maybe I want to feel confident, so I reach for the confidence zone, or I need to feel confident, so I don't feel confident and I need to feel confident. How can I get myself into that mindset? So I'm reaching for the confidence zone because I need to feel that way. So it's kind of like this like emotional awareness check-in, the body check-in. What does my body need? What can I tolerate? What can I enjoy, embody? And then the second question that I would always ask is, what story do I need to tell today? Because in the end, we are storytellers of our own narrative, and the clothing that we wear tells the story, and the story of our identity towards the people out around us. So when we are trying to bring this together, I would not necessarily think, what do I need to wear today, or I have nothing to wear in my wardrobe to wear today. No, you do. You just need to figure out how do you need to feel, and what story do you need to tell today? What story of yours do you need to tell today? And it's not like when you're thinking about starting to slowly apply fashion psychology within your life, it's not about reinvention as much. It's more about realignment. So how can we come back to, or how can we align what we wear to who we are? And we have multiple identities within us that come out in different contexts. So how can I cater to each of them? Like when you go to work, it's a different identity. When you are staying at home and you're doing housework, it's a different identity. When you're running errands, it's a different identity. So it's like you focus in and out of different identities more or less. So how can my clothing support that narration of that identity that you're needing to bring into focus? And it actually supports you to step into that narration even easier. So it's all about realignment and about creating the scaffolding for you to be just a successful, empowered, and healthy human being.
Wow. That's really important. And I love the fact that you're saying that there's zones. confidence zone, comfort zone. That makes total sense to me. Because actually that's the kind, it's like I'm wearing red today to be confident. Even though I am confident, it gives me that boost.
Yeah.
Because I'm interviewing somebody I've never met before, so I knew nothing about you. So basically I had to give myself that boost, because we all can be nervous and uncertain at any time. So yeah, thank you so much, Jennifer. I know this interview is going to be so popular. I just know it will be, because you've opened an area that I don't think is talked about enough.
It's not, no. I mean, we have more and more fashion psychologists pop up everywhere because, like, especially in London and in the UK, because we have the University of Arts who does teach that specific course. So they are doing like a master's degree tailored perfectly onto like how can we apply psychology within the fashion industry, and not only industry, but a broader aspect of things. But also more research pops up. I mean, I'm currently on process to publish my research papers. So there's more also just being fed into the literature review. And I think it's just important to always look into intersections of things as well, because what fashion psychology does, we are pretty much bridging. I mean, look what I am bridging. I'm bridging identity, emotions, and memory. Emotions and memory is cognitive psychology, but identity is split in identity and personality theory. And then we have social psychology, which is a big part of identity too. So I'm kind of bringing all of this now together through that one tool is literally what we wear. So it's really fascinating to see how psychology is just so intersectional.
Absolutely. Well, I'm horrified to say, I must say, time's up, unfortunately. But Jennifer, thank you so much. It's been a brilliant interview as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you.
I've learned so much, and I'm sure the listeners will. So we will share your social media links and such like quite happily when we publish it. And yes, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.